Falcon looks to be a bit more thinky if one can set up the encounter deck with the help of some other aspect cards. Good game. Taking on an expert red skull is quite ambitious with his precon deck. I couldn't beat standard claw. I made a generic aggression deck and it's much better, but Falcon can still struggle. If it's any consolation, I lost to Rhino playing his precon in standard. I don't like his precon and I find there's so much to think about. I just seem to tread water until I eventually schemed out. I feel a bit like you. He seems to lag a bit. Like you have tons of stuff to set up to manipulate the encounter deck for a hit or miss reward. What I'm fine with Falcon is he doesn't inherently have enough ways to ensure he's discarding high boost cards. And when he does, the payoff doesn't seem impactful enough compared to other heroes, having much more ways in their hero kit to control their game plan. Those are just a few comments from you guys about the new Sam Wilson Falcon hero that I kind of agree with. What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and this will be my Sam Wilson Falcon hero review right here. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna do the breakdown here of my regular charts whenever I review heroes, and for every single hero in Marvel Champion, I think that there are 5 major categories: their thwarting ability, their attacking ability, their survivability, economy, and versatility. And we're gonna run Falcon's cards here in his hero kit through this system. So for thwarting here, each category has 3 subcategories, and thwarting is gonna be the stat line, the control, and the cards. And Falcon does have really good thwarting. He gets a full 3 out of 3 here score for his thwarting ability. The stat line, the thwart stat, is the most important stat in my opinion for a hero. And for any hero in Marvel Champions, we always want to aim for at least a thwart stat of 2. Having that initial thwart, printed on your hero card is very important to help thwart off initial threat off the main scheme and side schemes as well. And Falcon does have 2 thwart right here, which is really good. So he definitely just gets a check mark for that. And then next here is going to be control. What I mean for control for thwarting is, can this hero flip down safely and either, confuse the villain or manipulate the encounter deck in a way so that they know they can flip down and not get like an advance and allow the villain to scheme out and, win the game. And Falcon is very good at that, right? He's probably one of the best heroes at that because with his hero ability right here, during the player phase, play with the top card of the encounter deck face up. You always know what the top card is, so you can kind of control that the boost is going to be 0 or 1, right? So if you see like a 3 booster and you know that that's going to be a top card in the character when you flip down, you don't want to flip down because then you'll know that the villain scheme with a boost of 3. If you know it's a 0 booster, then it's safe to flip down now and allow the villain to get that boost card and, it's just scheme with 0 scheme. And then even if the villain gets like, like an advance, you have this card right here, which is really cool. Aerial Retcon. It's a 1-cost upgrade. Has the aerial and tactic traits. Hero action, you can exhaust this card, deal a player a face down counter card, and place 1 red counter on this card. So whenever we do that, sorry about that, guys, that was just me jumping on the table. So whenever we do that, we have a red counter on this card, and we have that in a counter card that we already know what it is, because Falcon, with his hero ability, is looking at the top card in the encounter deck. So you deal that card that you already know what it is with the hero action here from the area Recon, and as an interrupt that you can trigger in alter ego and in hero form. When a player will be dealt an encounter card, remove 1 red counter from here instead. So that means if you do yourself, that encounter card, during the villain phase, if you're an alter ego, you can for sure guarantee that the villain will not deal you an advance because you can prevent that by just removing a red counter from this card, and then you won't get dealt any encounter cards during the villain phase, and you'll get that encounter card that you dealt yourself originally. That was, hopefully like a minion or like a side scheme, something like that that you can easily defeat. And this card you can also save for later as well, right? So if you want, you can just get that encounter card right away, and then later on in the future, you can do this on a different turn and just remove that retcon counter. As long as there are retcon counters on this card, you're able to remove it and prevent yourself from getting dealt an encounter card. So that's a pretty nice safety net. And this, in combination with this hero ability to prevent high boost, means that Falcon can definitely flip down very safely and has that control on a threat mitigation. And the third subcategory for thwarting is going to be the cards in his kit. Does he have, like good thwart events? And Falcon definitely has a good thwart event here. The Bird's Eye View is a 2-cost event, and here action thwart remove 3 threat from the scheme, which is, just, pretty standard 2 for 3. It's nothing special there, but you only discard the top card in the counter deck to remove 1 additional threat from that scheme for each icon in that discarded card's boost area. So it's minimum 2 for 3. It's often going to be 2 for 4 or 2 for 5, and it can sometimes even be 2 for 6 or 2 for 7, which is crazy, right? If you could do like a card with 4 icons on that encounter card that you're discarding. I mean, 2 cost for 7 threat removal is just entirely insane. I do want to mention though, he only has 2 copies of this card in his kit, which can often actually feel pretty lackluster, right? He only has 2 copies of the story event and also 2 copies of his attack event right here, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, he definitely will get a check mark here for having a solid, thwarting card. And he also has this upgrade right here, which is also really good for thwarting. It's going to be the Battlefield Awareness right here. It's a 2 cost upgrade, aerial and skill traits. As a hero interrupt when a Falcon uses a basic power, so include whenever he uses his basic thwart activation, you can exhaust the Battlefield Awareness and discard the top card of the encounter deck. Falcon gets +1 to that power for this use for each icon in the discard card's boost area. So that means that Falcon, this upgrade will just stay in play forever, right? So whenever Falcon uses his basic thwarting, his thwart stat of 2 that was over here, it can often thwart for 3 or 4 or 5 or even 6 sometimes, and that can feel really nice. So definitely, he has a couple good ways to thwart. I do want to mention here, this kind of goes in like every category, but Red Wing is his identity specific ally. This ally can really do everything, right? It's a 2 cost ally with 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 hit points. As a hero action, you can exhaust Red Wing, return him to your hand. So pretty thematic there, like the bird flying back to your hand. Then you discard a top card of the encounter deck. Choose to either do X damage to enemy or move X thwart from a scheme where X is equal to the number of icons in the discarded card's boost area. So that can be pretty powerful to exhaust Red Wing to do that. I wanted to note with Red Wing is that if he activates, right, like if you exhaust him to thwart or attack, he'll take a consequent damage, and he won't be able to exhaust again to use his ability unless you can ready him. Fortunately, there are a lot of cool, ready cards in the aerial precon deck for Falcon, but that's not really going to be a part of his identity-specific kit. He does have a way to ready up cards here with the talent line, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but this card is not the most consistent card in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, Red Wing can definitely, do threat removal or damage, depending on whatever you need him to do. But you do return back to your hand, so not the most useful way to burn resources, right? Because you're paying 2 for ally and it comes back to your hand. So it's kind of 3 effective resources to either, do X damage to enemy or remove X from a scheme. You kind of want them to thwart or attack, first and then do that, right? To really get the full bang for your buck. But definitely, Red Wing can definitely add to his storing ability for Falcon. All right, so Falcon's storing is pretty good in my opinion. He gets a full score of 3 out of 3. Let's move on to the next major category, which is going to be Falcon's attacking ability. And then this is where he starts to fall down for me. So the 3 major or the 3 big subcategories for attacking for a hero in Marvel Champions, in my opinion, is their burst damage, small instance of damage, and the cost curve of those attack events. Can you play them and feel like it's not too bad, playing those attack events? And Falcon gets a score of 1 out of 3 here. So I think burst damage is very important. My favorite example that I always bring up is Venom Goblin, right? Or even Green Goblin Munition Formula. When you have flipping over to the next stage, you have to do yourself a bunch of encounter cards. So on extra mode, when you flip Venom Goblin to stage 3, you deal each player 3 face down encounter cards. So you want to have burst damage to just take them out in one shot. A lot of the more difficult villains also have retaliate as well. So having big, single chunks of damage can also help you avoid a bunch of retaliate damage. If you're just doing, 2 damage, 3 damage, 4 damage every single time, then you're taking a bunch of retaliate, which could actually drop your life down into like a pretty dangerous zone. So Falcon does not have burst damage in his kit. His damage is actually pretty lackluster in my opinion, right? Like we mentioned before, he has the Birds of Prey here as his attack event. He only has 2 copies of this card. It's the exact same thing as a story event right here, right? 2 costs to do 4 damage, which is decent. And you could discard top card, then counter deck to do additional damage for each icon in that boost area, which because Falcon's hero ability, you can see that top card. So this is at least 2 or 4. It can be 2 or 5, 2 for 6, 2 or 7, 2 for 8, which will be, insane. But it's very reliant on having high boost cards on that encounter deck. And unfortunately, if you have bad luck, or even a lot of encounter decks will have a lot of 0 boosters or 1 boosters, and if you don't have another way to also manipulate that and then still play the Birds of Prey, it's not doing much damage, right? So I just find this super inconsistent, and only having 2 copies of that really hurts with the inconsistency of this card, right? If there are 3 copies, the consistency will go way up, because then you can draw it a lot more times, have it a lot more often, be able to do that damage more consistently, right? So that's his kind of main attack card. He also has Red Wing here, like we talked about, which can also exhaust, return to your hand to do damage. And then Falcons, the last thing is going to be the same thing that we talked about earlier with the Battlefield Awareness right here, right? So when he uses base power, we exhaust his card. This card top card in the counter deck, and then we get +1 to your power. So if he's using his basic attack power, which is just his stat of 2, then you can also discard top card in the counter deck and then get a boost to that attack, right? Unfortunately, all these hits aren't that big. most of the time, right? Unless you can get like a 4 booster off the Birds of Prey or a 3 booster to do 7 or 8 damage, it's not going to be that much, and you will be taking a ton of Retaliate, and especially if you're lining up your burst damage, right? So if you're trying to do like, 21 damage in one turn, which is Venom Goblin Stage 3's, hit points, you need to have 2 Birds of Prey in your hands. Whenever you play one, there's no way to guarantee that the next, card of the encounter deck is going to be a high booster, and then for Falcon's basic attack, you also want another high booster, right? So you want to stack up, 3 cards with high boosts on the counter deck, which, is going to be pretty difficult for Falcon to do, even with the auto manipulation stuff that he's got going on. So overall, I don't think that that is very consistent. So he does not get a check mark here for his burst damage. Next would be the small instance of damage. So this is very useful to help you ping off toughs, to defeat minions, right? So if a hero has like piercing in their kit, I will attribute that to having, small instance of damage. Falcon will struggle with toughs. He will struggle also with, minions because he does not have a lot of small instances of damage in his hero kit. So once again, we have the Birds of Prey here, which is, decent. If you had like 3 copies of this card, just a cheap 2-cost attack event is not that bad, but only having 2 copies means he does not have a very consistent way to, get this attack down. Also, with his basic activation, he does not have a reliable ready in his kit. We'll talk about his ready a little bit, right? If a hero has a lot of readies, that's also going to contribute to having a bunch of small instant damage, right? Because you can ready up, attack a minion, ready up, attack another minion, right? And just knock off toughs and do stuff like that. And yeah, Falcon does not have that. He can, build that attack with that battlefield awareness card that we talked about, right? So this upgrade right here. I think this is kind of his main upgrade whenever I'm playing Falcon to, boost up his basic activations. But once again, right, you get that once and then you can't really do anything if you can ready up again, which would be with the Talon line right here. So this is a 2-cost upgrade. It's an item card. Hero response: after you resolve Falcon's equal to I ability, which is his hero ability, you can discard Talon line. For each icon in this card's boost area, choose one. You can ready a character you control or stun an enemy. So that is, it is not bad, right? It's for sure not bad. But the fact that it only happens one time and you had this card in order to do that, feels kind of bad. Which this kind of makes it not the most consistent way to ready up your hero. And you can ready, the high potential for this card is very, very high because you can ready up tons of characters if you have like 4 characters, in play. And then you just card like a 4 booster or like a 3 booster, you can ready almost all of them up, which can feel really good, or stun a bunch of enemies, which also feels really good. I wish that this card was a prep card. Because if it was a prep card here, we could use practice plan to bring it back after we trigger the prep ability. But unfortunately, it is not, which means it's a little bit, more inconsistent because it's hard to recur back and play this over and over again. Obviously, this doesn't really make sense as a prep card because you're really prepping for the villain to do stuff. And whenever you use this card, it's not really prepping for the villain. You're just kind of doing your own thing. But I can kind of see Eagle Eye as if, you're prepping against the villain because you're just carding, that card in the counter deck. But yeah, it doesn't count. It does not have the prep trait, so you're not really doing that. So unfortunately, this is not a consistent way for Falcon to ready up here. So he does not have a lot of small instances, in my opinion, and I do think that he struggles with tough status cards and with a swarm of minions. Lastly is going to be the cost curve of his attack events. Does it feel like Falcon can easily, get his attacks out? And this should kind of have an asterisk right here. So I give him a score of 1 out of 3. So, he does have that because Bird of Prey, it's pretty cheap. It's only 2 costs to, do 4 damage, which is, pretty decent, right? And it can do more than 4. So he gets that check mark, but he only has 2 copies of it, right? So even though it's easy to play, sometimes when you need to play it, you don't have it in your hand, and there's not much other real ways for Falcon to do damage outside of your Bird of Prey and Red Wing. So I kind of wish he had, just more copies, maybe some other small, attack events in his kit. Unfortunately, he has so many different upgrades that all do kind of different things, right? We have, this upgrade here, this upgrade here, this upgrade here, just a ton of other stuff. So unfortunately, I don't feel like that it's super consistent, but once again, this is not about consistency. It's about, can he easily pay for those attack events, which he can. So definitely, he gets a check mark here for that, box. So I gave him an overall score of 1 out of 3 for Falcon's attack ability. Not great. Definitely one of the biggest holes in his kit is just being able to do damage, right? I think that's fine, right? Falcon's not really like the strongest guy, in the Marvel lore, but I think being able to thwart and, scout ahead is a cool thematic thing for Falcon. So his thwarting is really good. His attacking is not as good. The next big category that we have is the survivability right here. So these are the 3 subcategories. So I think it's very important for an identity to have, printed survivability on their hero card. And Falcon, unfortunately, does not have that, right? So in Alter Ego, right, whenever you start off the game, if you get really unlucky and get a bunch of attacks, is there a way for you to mitigate damage or avoid that? And for Samus in here, I mean, you can discard a card from your hand to search your deck and discard out for a bird card, and then you can add to your hand. So you could get, your ally here, which can chump block for you, which, isn't terrible, but you'll usually draw into ally on turn one anyways. And then another really cool bird card that you can get is going to be the Falcon's Flocker here, which actually adds to his economy, which we'll talk a little bit later on whenever we're on the economy here, but that could be really good for the economy. But anyways, back to survivability, it doesn't really add to his survivability, right? To be able to add that card to your hand, because then you start to play Red Wing anyways. It's just like playing ally and have the ally block for you, which I'm not going to really attribute as having, survivability. And next is going to be Falcon's Hero ability. So this right here, you could kind of attribute that to giving him, some survivability here. During your player phase, you play with the top card of the counter deck face up, so you know that the boost is going to be whatever, but you still can't manipulate it unless you can trigger Eagle to Eye, which is this hero ability here, right? After you play an area card, discard top card of the encounter deck, right? So you're not able to trigger this ability right here, then you're still not necessarily being able to control that and prevent the damage, right? You need to actually play an area card to discard top card, and after you do that, if the next boost is also high, it does not really help you out, right? You need the next boost to be low. And even if the next boost is high, you can play another area card. But if you do that and the next boost is high again, right? It's just unlucky, right? So it's not necessarily helping you do that. You just kind of know the boost, but the card behind the boost may be a higher boost. Or if you don't discard it, it may be another attack activation like an assault or like a gang up, which means the villain's attacking again, and the Falcon have to take that damage, right? So I just find that a little bit clunky there, not as smooth as I would like. So yeah, he does not get a check mark here for his identity card having that survivability. Having like a bunch of hit points will also be really good to help Falcon in terms of that, but he just has your standard hit points of 10, So yeah, he does not get checked for that. Next would be the cards in his kit. I think Falcon actually has a pretty good amount of cards in his kit that actually add to his survivability. So let's take a look at them. The problem is that I think that they do kind of different things, right? So the first thing that we have here is the area evacuation. It's a one cost upgrade. This card, in my opinion, is really good at higher player counts. It's not the best in true solo. So as a hero interrupt, whenever another friendly character would be dealt any amount of damage, this card, prevent all the damage, change the alter ego. So Falcon can change the alter ego. And if you choose a character that is a hero, they can also change the alter ego form. So when you're playing this card in true solo, it has to be another friendly character, which means an ally. So that means that you have to exhaust an ally for them to get dealt damage with an attack. And then you discard this card so the ally lives, they don't take any damage, and then Falcon will flip over to Alter Ego. That feels kind of bad because now the ally is going to be exhausted during the player phase. Feels a little bit clunky there. But this card can be really good whenever your ally is dealt damage, not through them defending an attack, right? So if you get a card like, Metal Shards, deal 1 damage to each character you control, the ally is about to take damage. So whenever another friendly character will be dealt any amount of damage, you can discard this card, prevent all the damage. So now the ally is not going to be exhausted. You can protect the ally, and you get a free flip down to Alter Ego. So that is useful-ish. But once again, if you don't have any allies out, this card is not going to do anything to help Falcon, protect his survivability. It does help him, flip down if you're playing in, with other players, and you can protect the other player. But once again, in true solo, it's not going to be as good. In multiplayer, it's going to be pretty good because it's kind of like a free save. You can prevent all damage, for another player, and you can get a free flip to Alter Ego, and the other person can also flip to Alter Ego if they want to, right? Well, actually, they have to change over to Alter Ego. They also change if you choose to protect another hero, right? He's kind of swooping in, saving that person, and then both players flip down to Alter Ego, which is pretty thematic and fun. And then the next big card is going to be the Draw Their Fire right here, right? So this is a one cost upgrade, but it scales at each player count, right? So if you're playing 2 players, it's going to be 2 costs, 3 players, 3 costs, and so on, which is pretty unique. Has the aerial and prep keywords here, or traits, I mean. So you can use practice plan to recur this card, which is really, really cool in multiplayer. As a hero response, after the villain phase begins, you discard this card. Falcon does not exhaust to defend until the end of the phase. Okay, that is pretty powerful, right? So if the villain gets multiple activations, you have a bunch of minions, Falcon's just exhausting to block for everything, but he actually doesn't exhaust. So he can defend like, 10 plus times, and he will never have to exhaust, that whole entire phase when he's defending, which can be very powerful. Unfortunately, a lot of the perfect defense cards, when you defend, you have to exhaust them to trigger, right? So Inflammable, if you defend, take no damage, you can exhaust to draw a card. You can't ready up Inflammable and exhaust again to just draw a bunch of cards, right? It just exhausts one time. So it's not like uber powerful, right? Where you can just trigger perfect defense multiple times, but It is really, really powerful, especially in multiplayer, right? Because you can defend for everyone at the table, which is why, it has that scaling cost, per player count. Even in True Soul, this card is definitely not bad. And Falcon has some good synergy with protection, right? Especially if you practice playing to recur it over and over again. The only bad thing is that you have to discard it, but once again, practice playing will get this back because it is a preparation here, right? So pretty cool card there. And yeah, I think Falcon definitely has some nice stuff. And then he also has the Vibranium Microwave right here. He gets +1 defense, so that's kind of a constant effect. And as a Here Interrupt, when Falcon would take any amount of damage, exhaust his card, prevent 1 damage, and do 1 damage to an enemy. So that is really nice because it's not damage from an attack. It's damage just anywhere. So damage just pings on Falcon, you can exhaust his card, prevent one of it, and deal damage to enemy. This also not damage, Falcon's damage that he's doing to enemy. It's not damage from an attack, right? So it will avoid stuff like retaliate, and that can help you knock off toughs. Unfortunately, you can't do that unless you take damage, which doesn't feel the best. But yeah, I mean, it's still a really good card. This is one of the Falcon's better cards here. And he also has a defensive banner here, right? The up, up, and away. 0 cost event, so free to play, which is nice. Here response defense. So whenever you play this card, you are officially defending with Falcon. So the attack is going to be redirected at Falcon if it's not already on Falcon because you're playing a defense event. So after an attacking enemy, so whenever attacking enemy is attacking anybody, right? So if it's attacking an ally or another player, you can still play this card because that's the triggering condition for it. After an attacking enemy is given a face down boost card, look at that card and the top card of the encounter deck. You may swap those cards. Then draw 1 card for each printed icon in the current card's boost area. So this card actually feels a little bit clunky. Sorry about that noise, guys. If you guys hear that, that's just me just running crazy everywhere. But yeah, so this guy right here, I think it feels a little bit clunky, right? The draw is really nice, but you draw cards if you can give the enemy a very high boost, if they have like 3 boosts. So they're hitting you really hard, but you get to draw cards, in response to that. And if you give the villain like, like a 0 booster where they're not doing much damage, you don't get to draw a lot of cards. So it's kind of like balancing, like, do I want to draw a lot of cards or do I want to take a lot of damage? Or do I want to take a lot of damage and draw cards? Or do I want to avoid damage, but then I don't really get drawn cards. So it's kind of like pros and cons either way. If you can max out your defense with Falcon or prevent all the damage, right? Then it can be really good because you can give the villain like a 3 booster, take no damage, and still draw 3 cards. So it kind of depends there, but definitely still a very good card, and it gives you versatility to swap the boost or to take more damage depending on if you want to draw more cards, right? So just having that option, I think, is really good for versatility. And yeah, Falcon has tons of really good defense cards to add to his survivability. So he definitely gets a check mark for there. He should almost get double check marks for this. But unfortunately, having cards in your kit, it can only be in one category, in my opinion. Just because if you're not drawing those cards, or if you don't have the resource to pay for them or play them down. In Falcon's case, it's a lot of upgrades, right? So you can't afford the economy to play them while also managing with minions and threat. Then they're really not that good. So I think just putting here all in the cards category is fair. And we have Sesame right here behind the laptop. Hopefully she's not making more noise. But yeah, okay. So yeah, he gets a check mark here. Okay, Sesame is right here now. Okay, you guys, let me show you her. Hey, you wanna say hi? Okay, she doesn't want to say hi. All right, it's okay, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, and then so he gets a check mark for that. And then Falcon's healing ability, I don't think he has. So he actually has the Soup Kitchen here, which is a pretty unique-ish card. It's a 1 cost support, and it's an RTU action. So I like those RTU actions, especially if there's a 1 cost support there. Exhaust Sam Wilson and Soup Kitchen. Okay, this is the worst cost I've ever seen in my life. You have to exhaust Sam Wilson in Alter Ego and the Soup Kitchen here. I don't like that at all. You heal damage from Sam Wilson equal to his recovery stat and reduce the cost of next ally or support you play this phase by 2. So effectively, it's kind of like I will kind of think of this card as a 1 cost support where you exhaust it only in Art Ego, and the next ally or support that you play is reduced by 2. So it's kind of like a resource generator, but for double resources, which is really good, but only in Art Ego. So, if you look at it that way, that's like okay or whatever, right? But it's tied in to Sam Wilson exhausting to recover, right? So basically, whenever you exhaust Sam Wilson and you can heal damage equal to his recovery stat, it's basically the exact same thing as him just exhausting here to recover by 3, right? There's not much of a difference there, but you also get an extra benefit of being able to play an ally or support and reducing that cost by 2, which is massive, but it's not very versatile because you have to recover to get that ability, right? So if you don't want to recover or if you're at full health, you can still trigger the ability if you're at full health, right? because all you had to do is exhaust Sam Wilson. But you probably, I mean, if you don't want to recover, you force yourself to exhaust to get this benefit of reducing the next ally support you play by two. So yeah, I kind of wish that this was just an RTU action that you can just exhaust and then discard only, and then reduce the next ally support you play by two. But tying that into Sam Wilson doesn't really help his recovery at all, and he has no other recovery thing in his kit. He has that inconsistent rate that we were talking about earlier, right, with the talent line. So if you are exhausted with Sam Wilson, you can trigger Eagle Eye, ready up, and then you flip down to Artigo to recover. But only having one copy of this upgrade and it gets discarded after you use it means that that's usually not gonna line up the way we want it to. So he doesn't have any extra healing in his kit. So that will land with just a score of 1 out of 3 for his survivability. I do not think he is a big survivability type of hero. But I think if you play him in protection and you really lean into all those protection cards and you focus on playing those upgrades, his survivability definitely goes way up. Unfortunately, if you're playing him like, aggression or leadership or justice, you're not often prioritizing these defense cards, right? Like you're not often prioritizing the draw their fire, which is a one cost, upgrade that helps his survivability. And you're not often, prioritizing the Vibranium Microwave, even though you want to. And you're not often playing the up in a way either, right? So, it's kind of give or take. He has the cards in his kit, but they kind of work more well with protection and a higher player counts. And if you're playing other aspects, you want to do other things like thwarting or attacking, and it takes away from playing these other cards. Because in my opinion, Sam Wilson's economy is not the best either. And then I do want to also mention that battlefield awareness can also help, his defense, right? If he exhausts to use a basic defense, he gets +1 to the power for each use. If you are defending multiple times with the draw the fire, it is important to keep note that the battlefield awareness does have to exhaust. This card exhausts itself, so you can't use this card multiple times to just defend over and over again, right? It could be cool if this card does not exhaust, but then it would probably be too powerful, right? Because if Sam Wilson is defending multiple times, he's getting an extra boost each time. But once again, you can't, because this card has to exhaust to do that, and you can just exhaust at once, and then you won't be able to ready back up to exhaust again each time Sam Wilson defends without exhausting. So yeah, he overall his survivability, I think it's weird, right? On paper, it looks like there's a lot of stuff there, but then when you actually play him, I feel like it actually feels a little bit more limited, and it's really tied into getting those key upgrades and those cards down, and playing those defense events, which you don't really want to lean in as much if you're not playing like a defensive build with Falcon. Next would be Falcon's economy, and it's weird. Okay, so Falcon's economy, I think, is a score of 1 out of 3, and this. Okay, let's go into it here. So the three subcategories is going to be the identity card having economy, and you can also argue that Sam Wilson does have economy on his alter ego card because you're using his action right here, Birds of a Feather. So discard one card from your hand. So you lose a card from your hand, and you search your deck and discard out for a bird card, and you add to your hand. So when you do this, you're getting a bird card to your hand, and how you would get economy is if you get your resource generator, the Falcon's Flock right here, right? So it's a 2 cost support, it's a bird card, and it has 5 bird counters. You can use it as a resource card, right? You can remove 1 bird counter from here and generate an energy resource for an area card limit once per card. I'll talk a little bit more about this card later. I do not attribute Falcon to having economy on his alter ego side, because you have to ditch a resource from your hand to get this card, to your hand, right? If Falcon's alter ego ability was just, search your deck and discard out for a bird card and add to your hand, that would be a plus, a bonus to economy. But you're losing 1 card, you're losing 1 effective resource to gain 1 back. So unfortunately, I'm not going to give him a checkmark for that. He's really just evening out, right? You probably do want to get that card because it's really good, but once again, it's just evening out. You're not really helping and adding to it. And his hero ability does not really add to his economy either, right? He doesn't get anything to give you extra resources on turn 1, which is often going to be very important because it's the most consistent way to add economy. And, when you start off a game, you always want to start off, turn 1s with a double resource. And you want to mulligan into a double resource. So basically, if you have economy on your printed identity card, that's almost just having a double resource already, which is really nice. Falcon does not have that, so he does not get a check mark for his category. Next will be the cards in Falcon's kit. Okay, so he definitely gets a check mark for this, but once again, like with the survivability, it's kind of stacking there. It's kind of a lot of cards just stacking right there. So the first card I want to talk about for his survivability is definitely going to be the Falcon's Flock right here, right? Okay, so it's going to be Soup Kitchen and Falcon's Flock. Actually, let's go over the Soup Kitchen first because I feel it's a little bit easier to talk about. So it's a 1 cost support, RT action like we talked about earlier. After you exhaust Sam Wilson and the Soup Kitchen card, you can heal damage from Sam Wilson equal to recovery, and it reduce the cost of next ally or support played this phase by 2. So that's really nice. It is limited to allies and supports, but I think that that's not a bad limit, right? Like stuff like superpowers or like, cards that share trait with your hero, I think it's more restricted. But being able to play any ally or support reduce cost by 2 is really good. Unfortunately, is limited to alter ego as well. So you have kind of two limits there, right? The alter ego limit and also being limited to an ally or support. Once again, it's not bad though, right? You can reduce it by 2, which is definitely fair. And I think it's a decent card, right? It's just tied into exhausting your identity. So because you have to exhaust your identity to do that, I think it makes it a little more rough, right? You can play meditation as an alter action to reduce the cost of next round you play by 3. That's a zero cost event at the cost of exhausting your identity as well, right? So if you compare this to meditation, I mean, it's kind of even. This is a one cost support that will stay in play forever. They can use multiple times, but being tied to the healing as well, right? Not the best card. I would still give him a check mark for this just because the being able to reduce it by 2 is very, very nice. And usually you do want to heal with Falcon. I think it's a fair thing to do in alter ego because you flip him down to heal. But the real good card that Falcon has is actually Falcon's Flock. And I like this card a lot. So it's a 2-cost support. It has 5 bird counters, right? So it does have a limited use, and Sesame's back over here. But you remove a bird counter from here, generate a energy resource for an aerial card. Okay, it's limited to once per card, but not once per round, which means that this card does not have to exhaust to use. So if you have like, 5 bird cards in your hand, hypothetically, and you have the resource to pay for all of them, well, this can generate 5 resources in one turn. That is freaking crazy, right? Because I don't think we've ever seen a card like this where you can just remove a counter, like a bird counter, and it generates a resource for it without exhausting. So, I kind of exaggerated there with 5 cards, but you can usually use this card to generate 2 resources in one turn if you're playing 2 aerial cards, which is really cool because a lot of Falcon's cards are aerial, right? Like his events here are aerial. This upgrade here is also aerial, so you can generate a resource right here with the Falcon's Flock to pay for that, and you also remove another bird counter to generate an energy resource to pay for another area card like Draw the Fire, or his area events with the Bird's Eye View Thor event, or the attack event here with the Bird of Prey, or even for the ally as well, right? Because it has the aerial trait. So yeah, it's definitely a very cool card. Aerial Recon also has an aerial card. Like most of Falcon's card has an aerial trait. So this is a really cool card for Falcon. Unfortunately, it is only limited to area cards, so you can't use this for like an Avengers Mansion or a Queen Carrier, which would make this card really, really nice. But it's still a nice card. So definitely Falcon does have, cards in his kit to add to his economy. Unfortunately, it's just gonna be for a check mark here because when I'm playing Falcon, overall, the feeling of him and the cost curve, everything. The cost curve is not bad on paper, but I don't care about what things look like on paper. I care about the actual practicality of a hero. And Falcon feels very clunky, and his kit feels way too expensive. Whenever I'm playing Falcon, you want to play all these upgrades, right? You want to play the Vibranium Microwave. You really want to play the Battlefield Awareness, and then you want to play Falcon's Flock. You want to play the Stew Kitchen. Um, you want to play Talon Line. You want to play Draw Their Fire, like Area Retcon. You want to get all these cards down, and a lot of times they may not do something right away, but you want to have them play because they are good cards. But it's just so many upgrades that you want to play that help Falcon out. And I just feel like I can't pay for all that stuff. That's just my overall, personal opinion whenever I'm playing Falcon. It does not feel I'm able to afford all these cards, unfortunately. So even though he does have, cheap events here, and a lot of the upgrades are pretty cheap, overall the feeling is not that good, and I feel very clunky whenever I'm playing Falcon. So he does not get a check mark here for this. So overall his economy, I think this reflects how I feel about him. A 1 out of 3 score. I do not feel like Falcon has a very good economy. He's definitely one of the lower economy heroes, in my opinion, whenever I'm playing him. Lastly, it's going to be the versatility of the hero. And yeah, Falcon has some pretty good versatility here. So he has the first subcategory for versatility is going to be the in-game versatility. Can Falcon do a myriad of things, right? Can he rush? Can he build out? Can he do this or that? And he can definitely play any way that you want him to, right? He does not have to rely on one particular playstyle. You can see the top right in the counter deck, so you can really lean into scrying. You can also lean into more air cards and just ignore the scrying and just have that knowledge of that boost card, right? So yeah, Falcon can kind of really do anything he wants. He definitely has versatility in his kit. And then next thing is going to be the cancels here. So I know what you guys are thinking. Why is there no check mark here? And the reason why there's no check mark is because the air retcon right here, it is a way to pseudo cancel, but I think a real cancel is going to be a little more valuable, right? So right here, this card we talked about before, you can exhaust it, do a player face encounter card, place a retcon counter here. When a player would be dealt an encounter card, remove a retcon counter from here instead. So it's only whenever an encounter card is dealt. If that encounter card is already reviewed, you cannot cancel it, right? So if you already get like a very nasty encounter card, you're gonna have to just take it, right? There's no way to cancel it. So it's a good way to, preemptively stop encounter cards from coming. But you have to get an encounter card anyways, right? So you can kind of force one encounter card to prevent one later. But if you don't have a good encounter card to force here, right, to exhaust to take that initial encounter card, then you're gonna be taking that other encounter card that you don't know anyways. So yeah, I feel like this card, it looks really good, but in practicality, I still feel I'm getting encounter cards that I don't want whenever I'm playing Falcon, even leaning into a very heavy scry strategy. So I don't think that he actually has a cancel in his kit. He has a really good preemptive way to, control what's happening, right? So I give him that check mark for the Thwarting category here for the control, but it's not an outright cancel, which I think can be really valuable at times. Where you get like an advance and you just take it out, right? So it is very nice, but when you get the encounter card, you're not really canceling it. You're just kind of preventing an encounter card that you don't know what it is, right? You're just kind of preventing something that you don't know. It's kind of what Falcon is doing. And then last is going to be the aspect versatility. I think that Falcon definitely has versatility across all aspects. I think protection is crazy for him with all those, defense upgrades. He can definitely play in aggression and just kind of rush as well, build out that damage. He can play in justice, lean more into the scry stuff and the thwarting stuff, or he can also play in leadership, right? Just, being able to swarm with aerial cards. So I think he can definitely play in all aspects, and he has that versatility across all the aspects. So overall for Falcon's versatility, I gave him an overall score of 2 out of 3. Not bad. So Falcon here is unfortunately missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 check marks there, and you can definitely lean either way for that. For me, if a hero is missing 7 check marks here, I either give them a score of a B tier or a C tier, and my personal opinion is Falcon is a C tier hero here. Yeah, this is probably one of the weakest newer heroes that we've gotten as of late. It's crazy because I do like scrying. I think scrying is very powerful, but I think that the way that Falcon's kit works is that it's very balanced with the scrying, and it feels kind of tedious. Sorry about the guys, that was Sesame here again. But yeah, I am not the biggest fan of Falcon. That's my personal power ranking opinion of him, right? I don't think that he's the strongest hero. But personally, how much do I like Falcon? I also am not the biggest fan of him. I feel like he feels very tedious whenever I'm playing him, and I feel like I have to do a lot of stuff to really control the encounter and do that and know what boost I'm getting. Sorry guys, Sesame is distracting me here. And even with that, the actual impact of Falcon, I don't feel like is that good. So on top of, not really being able to impact the board that greatly, he feels very tedious in trying to manipulate that encounter deck and do all that stuff. And I feel like if you're not manipulating the encounter deck, and you're just leaning to other stuff like your aerial stuff or like protection, then you're not really optimizing what he wants to do, right? Because he wants to not just pay 2 costs to thwart for 3, right? He wants to thwart for 4 or 5 for just paying 2 costs. Same for his attack event as well. And once again, only having 2 copies of thwart event, 2 copies of attack event, he just feels inconsistent. He feels like he's doing a lot of things, going a roundabout way, and not really getting as much done and controlling the board as much as I would like. So yeah, that is my overall opinion on Falcon. Is he the worst hero of the Agents of Shield wave? I think he is. I think he's the least fun and also the weakest hero of this wave here. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down in the comments if I'm totally off. Let me know if there's some really cool build with Falcon that you tried that you think that will completely change, my opinion about him. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion on Falcon. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.